All right, well, we'll kick it off. Thanks for coming, everyone. I'm a new face for hosting here. I think this is my fourth time here at a GLREA Solar Star, first time hosting. So thanks for coming, everyone. My name is Connor Daly. I'm with the City of Ann Arbor's Office of Sustainability and Innovations, and I'm hosting tonight. We're going to hear from, this is actually fun for me to fill in hosting for big shoes of Julie Roth, welcoming Jon Mallek, who is one of my recent Solarize hosts in Ann Arbor's Solarize program. So well in the solar space with a solar battery and adding more solar currently. So happy to have everyone here. Shout out at the beginning to the sponsors for tonight: Eagle, Homeland Solar, Harvest Solar, Synergy, and Sumter Solar. I don't think anyone is here from them tonight, but thanks to them. Um, John, my first time hosting. It's been a while. Anything else before we kick it over to Jon Mallek? All right. Well, for everyone who is here, last thing I'll say before I turn it over to Jon Mallek is we're just interested tonight in why everyone is here. If you're here interested in learning more about solar because you want to get it, if you already have solar and you're just passionate about it, if you're interested in advocating, just why are you here? We're interested to hear that. If you want to just throw that in the chat, whatever you'd like to share, just so we can get an idea of who's here and why. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jon Mallek.
Hi, everybody. I'm in the process of sharing my screen here in a second, but my name is Jon Mallek, as Connor said. I'm here tonight as one of your presenters to share. Let's see, hopefully everyone should be able to see the full screen presentation in a second. Perfect. Sounds like you can see it. Um, so thanks for having me tonight. I'm really excited to kind of share my story and kind of selfishly, there's still one decision on the table. As Connor mentioned, I'm getting additional solar panels this year, and there's still a decision on the table on whether we should get a second battery or not. So maybe some of the folks in this group can weigh in with their expertise and background. So I'll get started here. So why solar? So about a year ago, my husband and I heard about Solarize in Ann Arbor and thought it sounded pretty cool. We had bought our house in January of 2023. So we were about a year and a half into owning our home and decided um, solar seemed like a pretty good idea. In the year and a half that we had owned it up until that point, the power had gone out maybe three times in total. Once was for about a full 24 hours. We live in a neighborhood in Ann Arbor where maybe about half the houses in our neighborhood had generators. Ours did not. So basically, the first reason when I learned that you could pair solar with a large enough battery that could potentially get you through an outage like that, that became my number one reason for wanting to get solar. Specifically, of course, the battery in addition to the solar panels. Um, and wouldn't you know it, as soon as we got the solar installed, we have not had a single outage since to be able to test it. But I guess, that just comes with the territory. But so, of course, like I said, our number one reason, at least for me, was resilience, the whole home backup, the diverse power supply, the idea that, if DTE is unreliable, we still had something to power us through, pretty much regardless. Of course, the second reason, probably on top of a lot of folks' minds, is the financial reason. As we probably are all aware, rates from DT are likely only to go up in the future. So we weren't big energy consumers at our house, which I'll get into later in the presentation. So our energy bills weren't massive by any means. Um, but at the same time, they're not massive now, but we anticipated that they would only go up. So we also got really great presentations from Connor with the Solarize group in the city, showcasing, between the Solarize discount, the various home energy rebates through the city of Ann Arbor, as well as the federal tax credits. It really just made sense for us. And then, of course, sustainability, reducing our impact, reducing emissions. That was important to us, but at least, in the grand scheme of things, that probably came in a solid third place behind resilience and some of the financial incentives. So, Like I said, it was about a year ago that we looked into this. We had our solar installed in December 2024. So we've had it less than a year. And needless to say, we're pretty much obsessed. I feel like I check the apps that show how much solar energy we're making probably at least 5 times a day, every day. So we're very thrilled we got it. And as Connor mentioned, we're looking into getting additional solar panels, which I'll get into as well. So here's our system that we had installed. We actually only qualified for 13 panels. So in Michigan, you're allowed to get up to 110% of your average energy use. So for us, that only meant originally qualifying for 9 panels. And then Alex Neely from Michigan Quality Electric, who some of you may know, told us he should be able to round up for us from 9 panels, and he was actually able to get us 13. You can see on the screen here, I have 13 REC panels. REC is the brand of panels we went with. And they are 430 watt panels, so they're pretty efficient. Um, REC, I think this year now has 450 watt panels out, so there are even more efficient panels on the market now, just a year later. Um, but you can see with 13 panels on our roof, we still had quite a bit of space on our roof. So our idea was we may have only qualified for 13 panels um, in 2024, but if we could increase our electric usage somehow in the next year or two, we were hoping to add additional panels. So Alex from Michigan Quality Electric said the average installation in the city of Ann Arbor was around 20 panels. So we were, far below kind of the average in terms of our home energy use. I think we actually probably did things a little bit backwards in our situation. We, really made our house very efficient. We had a home energy audit. We had our attic re-insulated. We had our basement rim joists insulated. We did kind of all the things to make our house super efficient, replaced a lot of the lighting fixtures and things like that. Only then to reduce our energy usage and only qualify for so many panels, which of course solar came after all of that efficiency work. So if you are looking into getting solar, it might behoove you to look into solar before you do all the energy efficiency stuff just to hopefully qualify for additional panels beyond the 110%. And then, like I said, we also had a battery installed. When we made our decision in September of 2024, this was, a little bit just before Tesla became a little bit more politicized. I think if we had the option again, we maybe would have made a different choice, but probably, as many of you know, the Tesla batteries are pretty cool. If all things considered, very efficient and pretty neat to work with. So, along with all of that work as well, between the solar and the battery, we also had our electric control panel upgraded from a 150 amp to a 200 amp panel. So, all in all, it seemed like a pretty comprehensive installation for us. And like I said, too, we went through Michigan Quality Electric to get that done. So a little bit on the data and some of the, before installation versus after installation. Here is our monthly DTE bill for energy, or for electric, I should say, for the 2 years we owned our home before solar. You can see it's, kind of all over the place. Some spikes, mostly correlated to when we used our air conditioning. We do have natural gas heat. So that wasn't really a factor on the electric bill. You can see here then our average grid use per month was 370 kilowatt hours. So if you're, kind of know where the ballpark is for your own home energy use, my assumption is this is probably on the lower end, hence why I said we only qualified for the 13 panels last year. Let's see. And then fast forwarding a bit after we had the panels installed and we had additional DTE bills to add to the equation. In February of 2025, our solar was turned on. It went through all of the approvals and things like that. So all of the months after that, you can see we drew far less from the grid. So our average grid use after installing solar was only 30 kilowatt hours per month, which means we dropped from 370 on average before to 30 afterwards. So it was over a 90% drop in pulling energy from the grid. So our solar more than covered 90% at least. And then, of course, as many of you probably know, we also supplied some to the grid, which is what these yellow bars are. So, based on the timing of when our solar generated energy versus when we consumed it, we still had to pull those on average 30 kilowatt hours from the grid, but we also sent 260 kilowatt hours per month back to the grid. So the way it works in Michigan with DTE is you don't actually make money on your DTE bill. If you produce anything in excess compared to what you pull from the grid, it gets put into like a little green bank fund on your DTE bill. So I think by about June or July 2025, our green fund, our energy fund on our DTE bill was already exceeded $100. So kind of like a credit of $100 or more. So we were really excited. This was, kind of exactly what we had hoped would happen by installing solar, and we were really happy to see it come to fruition. Here are some of the financials. So, like I said, we kind of, used a whole variety of various financial incentives to make this work for us. The upfront cost for both the solar, the battery, and the electric panel upgrade was just short of 40,000. After the solarized discount, the federal tax credit, and the Ann Arbor rebates, it almost took off about half the cost. I think if you calculated this out, I think ended up paying about 55% of the total upfront cost ourselves, with the remaining 45% um, getting kicked in from these various sources. So, that made it really manageable for us. You of course pay that money up front, the upfront cost, and then you get, the federal tax credit whenever you end up filing your taxes. And for us, the Ann Arbor rebates came within a few months, or a few weeks, I should say, once we filed for them. So you get the money back pretty quickly, but you do need kind of that funding up front. We did look into getting some financing in the event that we would have taken out a loan to have this installed, but the rates were pretty high when we looked. I think we looked into Michigan Saves, and the very, really lightly did some research on what the rates would be, and they seemed a little higher than we had hoped. So that's why we ended up paying for the upfront cost ourselves. And like I said, I'm obsessed with looking at the apps. So we largely use the Enphase app, which is the view you see on your far right. This is because we have the Enphase solar panels and the inverters. And then the two screenshots on the left and in the middle, these are from the Tesla app. So you can see it doesn't take much for solar during the day to recharge our battery. It more than covers our home use, which on the left-hand screenshot would be the blue is the home use, green charges the battery, and gray is what goes back to the grid. So the left-hand panel is just a 1 day snapshot. The panel in the middle, the screenshot in the middle, is the entire month of July, which of course is our best month of solar energy generation. Um, so about a third of our solar energy was consumed by our house. A little more than a third went to charging our Powerwall battery, and then a little less than a third was exported directly back to the grid. So we were really happy with how this kind of was panning out. It, of course, was really exciting to kind of have our first few months on solar be the summer months when you're making a lot of energy. So it was really exciting to see that we did generate, in the month of July, for instance, here on the screen, 800 kilowatt hours total. If you remember too, from earlier in the presentation, on average before solar, we consumed 370 kilowatt hours per month. So, we were more than doubling what we consumed pretty much each month. So it worked out pretty well for us. We were really excited. Um, but then, of course, it doesn't just stop there. Uh, we decided to integrate an electric vehicle into our household, before the credits for that went away, I think just 2 days ago. At the end of September, those expired for vehicles. We ended up getting a 2025 Chevy Equinox. We are actually getting our EV charger installed in our garage tomorrow morning. So it's a heavy week on solar and electric vehicle and all those things for me in this house this week. We did end up choosing to get a Tesla universal wall connector. So if any of you are familiar with, kind of EV chargers, there's quite a variety out there. We mostly chose the Tesla universal wall connector because it's supposedly supposed to integrate pretty well with our Powerwall battery. So we're pretty excited about that. Um, and something, before getting an EV that I didn't know was just how much an EV battery, the sheer size of it, and how much it just like blows the rest of your energy use out of the water. For context, our average daily solar production is somewhere probably around 20 kilowatt hours. Our average daily home consumption the last few months is somewhere maybe around 18. The Tesla Powerwall capacity is 13.5 kilowatt hours, but the Chevy Equinox battery capacity is 85. So once we, got the vehicle and just started plugging it into our normal level one EV charger outlet in the garage, it just started consuming kind of all the energy we produced in a day, which was kind of shocking because we, of course, had gotten used to our solar covering all of our energy needs, but then also exporting a lot to the grid. Well, exporting to the grid kind of stopped once we started plugging the car in. So, um, like I say, too, kind of at the top of the slide, integrating an EV, it's a work in progress. We're connecting the EV charger tomorrow, having it installed. And then as Connor mentioned, we are looking to install an additional set of panels on our house. So what we learned is because an EV battery is so large, you can qualify for quite a few panels just by having an EV and showing that, here's the vehicle we own, here's our anticipated miles that we anticipate driving in a year. And we again are going through Michigan Quality Electric for this second round of panel installation. And again, working with Alex Neely at Michigan Quality Electric. This was the mock-up he sent us. So everything you see in this photo on the roof with the red dots would be the additional panels we're hoping to add. Um, so basically, the entire south side of our roof is going to be covered in panels. And our system as a whole, our first round that we installed last year was about 5.6 kilowatts of capacity. With these 20 additional REC 430 watt panels, will be an additional 8.6 kilowatts. So in total, we'll have a 14.2 kilowatt system total. And if you were on just before we started, I mentioned our application is into DTE, and Michigan Quality Electric paid our permit fee or our application fee, I should say. So we're in process of getting these hopefully installed probably sometime in the next 6 weeks or so, maybe the next 8 weeks or so. So hopefully more to report back if I tune into the next solar stories. And then as I mentioned, adding additional battery capacity. At the beginning of the presentation, I mentioned, the main reason I wanted solar was for the resilience factor to kind of have that whole home energy backup. So for me, now that we have larger home energy use after adding an EV, in my mind, it kind of made sense. If we're adding panels, maybe we should also add an additional battery. If you know anything about Tesla Powerwalls in particular, the first one is the expensive one because it comes with a lot of the, all of the various overhead, I guess you might call it. But a second one is about half the price around there of the first one. So adding a second one would not be the same substantial cost, but it is still a lot of money. Michigan Quality Electric did price us out at $9,000 for adding an additional battery. which would still be subject to the 30% tax credit. So in our minds, we're kind of just ballparking it at about 6,000. Um, as many of you probably know, batteries don't really pay themselves back, which is the ultimate reason we decided not to get the battery at this point. But perhaps in the future we'd add a second one. We also don't really know how an EV battery could potentially work as a backup for our home. We would have to buy some kind of two-way charging infrastructure from GM to make that work, which that's its own cost, and we're not really sure how well that would work. But essentially, by having an electric vehicle, that is a second battery. So that kind of factored into our calculations as well, deciding not to get the second battery. Um, and that takes us to the end of the presentation, at least for this part. But this photo on the right is a picture of our Tesla Powerwall in our garage. Um, so in addition to getting the Tesla Universal Wall Connector EV charger installed tomorrow, we're hopefully going to leave room for another Tesla Powerwall. At least in my mind, eventually maybe we'll add one, but I guess we'll see. But with that, I'm happy to take questions, and I'll stop sharing my screen as well so I can see everyone else. Okay,
We got
Michael, I
some
see your
questions
hands
coming
up.
in. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, no, John, feel free to facilitate questions.
Sure, Michael. And I'm actually going to turn on a light. I see it got darker in here for me.
Well, John, my story is actually kind of similar to you. I have 27 solar panels that I got in 2019 and 2020, and I have two Tesla Powerwall batteries. Um, and the system was very good. For the last 6 months, I have been off grid, not pulling a single kilowatt from DTE. The problem was that over a year ago, I got a air source heat pump. I got rid of my furnace, got rid of my air conditioner, and got an air source heat pump. And the air source heat pump is worse than a car as far
Mm,
as energy usage. So that's why I applied to get additional panels because, last winter I got a bill for $700. So I'm hoping that DTE is going to do it. But in any case, I was very happy with the two power walls because it was enabled me to be completely off grid for the last 6 months. So that's my thought.
yeah, I mean, in our first month or two having our solar turned on with just the one Tesla Powerwall, I think we went a stretch of about 3 weeks being completely off grid. Just kind of naturally it happened. So I'm excited to see what happens once we have these additional panels installed. I don't think we'll be completely off grid, but the idea of maybe one day being completely not having to pull any kilowatts from DTE would be really great. So uh, maybe in the future. I know prices are generally coming down on a lot of solar infrastructure, hopefully also batteries. So maybe we'll revisit it sometime in the near future.
My first goal was to save planet Earth. My second goal was to completely be off DTE. So when I got my heat pump and got rid of my furnace, and everything else gas in my house I replaced with electric. I called up DTE and canceled my gas line. That was a good day. Uh,
Yep.
yep.
And we did look into adding a heat pump to our house as well. Basically, like I said, we wanted to increase our electric usage to be able to qualify for additional panels. And we looked into getting a heat pump, but the previous owners of our home had replaced the entire HVAC system in 2021.
Uh,
So it just didn't make sense for us to switch from basically what was a brand new HVAC system, even if it used natural gas, to an electric heat pump. That's what then prompted us to switch to looking at EVs to kind of increase our electric usage to be able to qualify for more panels. So,
okay. Thanks.
Hey,
yeah, thanks.
John, would you, looking in hindsight, would you do anything differently?
Um, I think, like I said, maybe we would have looked into solar a little bit before we did all the home efficiency work, because perhaps we would have qualified for a few more panels. Looking into kind of the energy use, we probably wouldn't have qualified for that many more, especially, now looking into what an EV qualifies you for. The other thing is, like I said, when we kind of booked everything last year and signed the contract with Michigan Quality Electric, that was before Tesla kind of became as politicized as it was. Um, Perhaps we would have looked into a different brand battery. But as I said, Tesla Powerwalls really are fantastic batteries. We're really happy with it. So much so that we did, of course, even opt to get a Tesla EV charger, which was tough to make the decision on that. But if we didn't have the Tesla Powerwall, we probably wouldn't have gotten the Tesla EV charger. So potentially that would have been a difference, but I guess it's kind of hard to say. And then I guess, I don't know if anyone else has ever had this happen, but with our first set of panels, they installed them on the roof about maybe 6 inches lower than they maybe needed to. And I only bring that up because if you saw kind of the sketch of where we're going to add the additional panels, the third row would hang over our roof by about 2 inches. So we need to shift up our current panels by about those 6 inches. Our installers have said they can shift our current panels up 6 inches without drilling holes into the roof, drilling new holes, I should say. I, for now, believe them, but I'm really nervous that we're going to basically make all of these additional holes in the roof just to shift up the panels last year to accommodate adding 3 full rows this year. So maybe we would have mentioned more explicitly to the installers last year that we were really hoping to install panels in the future, and that would have been taken into account right away. Um, Maybe we did kind of offhand, but maybe we would have just more explicitly made that clear last year and could have avoided this. But again, our installers say they can shift them up without too much trouble. So I guess I'm not too worried yet. Check back with me in a few weeks.
I have one or two questions. My only issue whenever John presents is that, John, you answer all my questions in your presentations. And I remember your last one. I thought I had some new ones, but you got some of these too. I'm wondering, and this is a tough one because you haven't had a big power outage, but do you have an idea of how long your current battery would last you in an outage, give or take?
Sure. So, like I said, our average daily home energy use seems to range probably from about 10 to 20 kilowatt hours a day. The battery is 13.5. It actually seems to average maybe closer to 14 kilowatt hours of capacity. So if it's fully charged, it can last us generally about 24 hours. Of course, that's kind of all thrown on its head now that we've integrated car charging at home. In an outage, we likely wouldn't charge our vehicle, of course, off the battery or off of solar. But we're pretty confident that the battery can get us through probably 90% of evenings, from sundown to sunup when solar kicks back in and takes over, and then often can cover the house and recharge the battery. So, at least with our house at the moment, it can pretty much get us through any outage. So if, the power was out for 3 days, it would probably cover us, assuming it's sunny, and can kind of fill in the gaps. So good question. I guess I'm not sure who's first. Michael, you're first on my screen.
I was interested in the outage too. In the summertime, my average daily use is 8 kilowatts per day. And with two solar batteries, I have 27 kilowatts of storage. So without any sun, I can go for 3 days on my batteries. Now,
Wow.
the Tesla app keeps track of outages. So we have had several outages. I think in the past year, I think I've had about 10 outages, but each one has lasted less than 5 minutes. So our electric is underground, so we don't have the problem with the trees going on the wires.
Nice. That's great. And
Uh,
then
Dave,
yeah, either Abraham or Dave is next.
Dave, go ahead.
Uh, yeah, I just wondered how many people are in your house and how many people are in your house all the time. Or I assume that the two of you are working, so is the house empty and that kind of conversation.
Yeah, good question. I actually should have mentioned that during the presentation. It is just me and my husband, so there's just two of us. Both of us work in Lansing 3 days a week, so we are, generally gone from probably 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. most days in the middle of the week, but otherwise home kind of the other 4 days. So, um, our energy use in our house when we're not home most of the day averages probably about 10 kilowatt hours, maybe a little less, maybe a little more. So of course, when we're home, we use more. Um, but that's why, if we're not home and the power were ever to go out, our battery would definitely carry us through because we're not using anything really. But uh, we'll see when if we are home and things like that. But we haven't gotten to test out an outage just yet.
And one more follow-up. What do you use for water heating? Is that electric also?
It's not. We have
Ah, okay.
as of 2022, so again, the previous owners of our home seem to replace everything. It is natural gas water heater. So also pretty new. So we looked into possibly getting a heat pump water heater, and it just didn't really make sense just yet.
Um,
And I guess I should add really quick too, the only other things that use natural gas in our home are we have a natural gas dryer for our laundry and then a natural gas fireplace that we don't really use all that much.
how is power managed during outages? Is the Siemens panel and Spark panel, does it allow you to automatically um, manage the circuits that are essential and downs others? Um, is there an algorithmic control automated in that type of panel, or how do you manage it in these types of circumstances?
Interesting question. I guess my upfront answer is I don't know. I don't think it's that sophisticated of a panel, so I don't think there's any kind of like automatic management of, powering essential things and, letting go of non-essential things during an outage. But at the moment, the, Tesla Powerwall seems to kind of manage where energy's coming from at all times. So if there was an outage, if the grid actually goes out, that's when, the battery kind of automatically kicks in and would manage that. And it would be up to us to kind of make sure we unplug things or, stop using energy that's unnecessary at that time.
You the I don't know the Tesla Gateway 2 with the current Tesla charger, but it may actually manage that for you as well. That is to say that it will automatically, and at the moment, just shut off the electric vehicle charging. Uh,
Mm,
hope, hopefully, in the near future, the reverse can happen, whereby it can call upon the battery of the car to power your house. But the
that's
other
the
part of
dream.
the other part of the
Mhm.
management is possible. I just didn't know that whether that Siemens panel would allow that. But
Mhm.
SPAN is an example. The SPAN panels do can prioritize all of that and can do so in conjunction with communication to the Tesla gateway.
Interesting.
You know.
Hmm.
The
Thanks.
Tesla Powerwall also has a feature that if the weather service is predicting a storm, it will automatically pull off the grid and charge your battery to full capacity to carry you through the storm.
Right. Now, not all not all of our storms in over this last year have been uh, sufficiently announced by the weather service that is being monitored. So we've had at least two storms over the last 4 months or so that were surprise storms with power outages. I live in Ann Arbor as well, and and the power wall, the gateway was not able to just did not start the protocol for loading the Tesla batteries. I have two as well.
Well, I have a question, John, actually following up on this is more clarification. You said when you first got your system, you were off grid for a few weeks,
Yes.
as is. Was that in the winter?
It would have been, I believe, in April.
April.
So, not exactly the sunniest of months, but a decently sunny month, and it worked. We weren't using much. I don't think we were using really, of course, our AC was not turned on yet for the summer. So our energy usage at home was quite low. Solar coming in was pretty strong. So yeah, I think we went a solid 3 weeks without drawing anything from the grid, which was really exciting for us because that was the dream. So the fact that we did it in April uh, was exciting for us because that, of course, meant we'd probably be able to do it in May, June, July, August, September. So we were pretty pumped.
And then I had another
Where
question. Oh yeah, go
where
ahead, Abraham.
sorry, where do you live in Ann Arbor, or at least where is your grid that uh, allowed that, however long it was,
Yeah,
weeks? I
yeah.
mean,
So we're
where?
behind Arborland Shopping Center, if you're familiar. So
Oh
that'd be
yes,
the kind of
right,
the southeast side of the city, kind of at Washington
right,
Avenue and Highway 23.
right. Are you right in those in the condominiums there behind the Arbor Lake shopping center?
Yep, we're in the Wood Creek subdivision.
Oh,
Yep.
wow, that has that. It's that fragile. Are the electric lines supplying your residents, are they above ground or underground?
They're underground.
And it still was okay. That's quite a hit. I know that they've been actually changing the transmission lines along Washtenaw there, so
Mhm.
maybe
Yeah,
that was
actually,
an
the line you
incur.
might be referring to is kind of more or less right behind our house, and they just replaced it all this last summer a few months
That's
ago. So
right. It's I was
we
yes.
might never get to test a power outage at this rate, but of course, that's a good thing.
Oh, there are all sorts of infrastructures which can still blow despite of those
Exactly.
new insulated lines. So good luck.
But we've seen in the Solarized program we saw a big increase in battery adoption after the IRA passed in 2022, but also after the huge ice storm in 2023, and
Yeah.
that's carried onward even through some of the folks buying right now for solar. Um, but I digress. My question, John, for you was one thing we see a lot for people who get solar is they have their own reasons for getting it, but they also know somebody who got solar who they were able to talk to or who said, "Yeah, you should get this." Did you have someone, a neighbor or a friend, who was trying to talk you into it as well, or is this just out of the blue?
We actually, I mean, for the most part, I guess the answer is no. We did have a friend in California who got it and just told us it was great. Of course, it's easy to believe them, but we just never really had that firsthand experience. But once we actually attended the Solarize session, that the information session where previous hosts or previous Solarize participants, I should say, are the hosts, that's what actually really helped us. We're like, wow, people that live less than a mile from us installed solar. This was their experience, it's generally positive. They got, batteries, they got panels, what have you, and it all worked. That's basically it checked all the boxes for us and allowed us to kind of not be too hesitant and just move forward. And Alex from Michigan Quality Electric was also really great. I think when he came out to our house the first time, he was here probably for almost 3 hours because we just threw every question we had at him. He showed us his modeling software of our house and, like the roof and where panels would be the most efficient, things like that. That was really neat. So, once we kind of had all that, it was pretty easy to sign the contract and move forward just because it felt very legitimate. I think we also felt comfortable going through the city, you know, through the Solarize group and stuff. So it didn't feel like we were going to get like spammed or, you know, catfished or whatever the term is that I can't think of at the moment. But so it seemed pretty legit, I guess, and that's what allowed us to move forward. Because of course, spending that amount of money is kind of scary, but um, we went for it, and we're pretty happy with it.
We like to hear that. Alex is really good about answering all those questions, as are most of the
Right.
installers we work with.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned this maybe when we were on the Solarize host session, but you know, Alex, for all intents and purposes, finished his, you know, his work with us once the panels were installed. But I think it was maybe in like May, half of our panels seemed to just stop generating energy, and we weren't really sure what was going on. And I just texted him, and like within an hour he had a technician from Michigan Quality Electric call me and say, "Oh, like a fuse in the box outside on the house for the solar panels just tripped. You just have to go outside and flip it back on." I was really embarrassed that it was that easy because I could have figured that out myself probably, but I'd never really thought that there were fuses outside attached to the side of the house related to the solar. I just assume all your fuses are downstairs in your fuse box. Not the case here. Um, so, you know, like I said, even though we were done with Michigan Quality Electric at that point, he was still really attentive and things like that. So he was really great to work with. And then, of course, now we are once again a Michigan Quality Electric customer as well. So his customer service and stuff like that was really helpful.
I'd forgotten about that from your first presentation. I know our Solarized sessions can get a little long with all the presentations, but that may be a quick thing to throw in there of get to know your system, or at least recommend people to ask their installer before they leave. Show me what all this
Uh,
means.
I
I
mean, had I just like flipped
uh,
open the boxes outside, I probably would have seen that those were very clearly fuses, but you know, it's always great to be educated on it at sooner than later.
I remember before I moved over to OSI, I worked at Cobblestone Farm for the park system, and when they put solar on that building, I remember we went out and looked at everything they put in there and thought, what is all this? What's So we told Simi with our office, what do we need to know about this if something happens? What is all
Yeah,
this?
exactly.
I I have one more question. Did you I missed, did you have an gas-powered furnace as well?
Yes, yep. So
Okay.
natural gas furnace, natural gas water heater, and natural gas clothes dryer. All
Right.
relatively new, so we're still on them for natural gas, and our hope is someday to convert them to heat pump electric. So,
So I'm operating an house not far from your neighborhood um, with two Mitsubishi Hyperheat systems and uh, had an high efficiency Bryant combined air conditioning and traditional AC unit. Um, and got rid of the air conditioning side, etc., and maintained the basically an unlimited kernel of the house to be heated by gas in case that was needed as a backup.
mhm.
And during this last year, during two or three of the Arctic spells that we had, um, it became very useful to have that. It's a limited system. It's only in a core part of the house, but and there is a separate ventilation system, so it does redistribute. But the um, it then turned out to be pretty difficult for even the hyperheats to. Uh, they were really relatively inefficient, if not very inefficient. When it got down to, we had these occasional spells down to minus 50. Okay, I'm thinking centigrade. So to minus 10, minus 15 or so. And
Mhm.
that's where it became useful uh, to have an occasional blast of hot air. Now, this is a very efficient, tight house, so
Hmm.
um, it's an it's a passive house built house, so we needed very little. But still, I would recommend keeping that part just in case you either run out of um, electric supply, either right away, and you don't have a generator. So
Yeah. Yeah, I know when we looked into getting the whole home heat pump, electric heat pump for our house, um, one of the reasons we were pretty interested was because the city of Ann Arbor does have a home energy rebate specific to installing a heat pump. But similar to getting solar and having the battery, I was really interested in kind of having that diverse power supply in that case. Well, with the heat pump, I was really interested in keeping the natural gas as a backup and having, the electric heat pump kind of do the majority, the bulk of the work. But to qualify for the Ann Arbor home energy rebate, you had to switch to the sole heat pump. You couldn't do the dual fuel heat pump, which I wasn't, like I said too, our HVAC was relatively new, so it just didn't make sense to replace all of it, and to even just to get the credit. So it still didn't quite make sense. But in my mind, even though we had this new HVAC system, in my mind, I was like, oh, perfect. We can just add a heat pump like in addition to that. But that didn't qualify us for the home energy rebate. So it kind of pushed it out of our financial ability at that time. So
I live in an area where we've had power outages in the middle of the winter, as long as 5 days, 6 days, as well as 8 days, I think was the longest in the summertime, except for the big outage in 2003, four, or five, I forgot. Um, and uh, and so we have had a generator for, oh, close to 40 years already, because we live in a
oh,
very forested area.
mhm,
So our lines got easily interrupted. And
mhm.
so the idea of having multiple backups to stay
Yeah,
operational
yeah.
is
I think
very
same thing.
attractive to
It's
me as
that
well.
redundancy is generally a
Yep,
good thing too, even if it might not be the most efficient. So
right. Well, congrats on your setup as well as your clear, concise presentation. Hats
well,
off.
thank you. Thank you. John?
Well, I just wanted to make a comment. I thought your comment earlier about how you would have gotten solar first and then do the energy efficiency afterwards is actually the opposite of what I've been hearing for years. But ironically enough, your reasoning makes a lot of sense because if you're limited to 110% of your capacity, and DTE is going to be a stickler to hold it to you. So if you install solar when your house is totally inefficient, you can install a fair number of panels. And then as your house gets more efficient, you still have those panels. DTE can't go back on their word. And so you have extra capacity that you can use for other purposes. So I just thought that was quite clever of you and Jason to think of that. Because again, it's counterintuitive, but it has its own logic. So
Yeah,
I
I
just
Yeah.
normally push back on that too, but it's a good example. What we say in the Solars groups is often you want to at least consider the efficiency work because you might oversize the system, but if you have additional electrification you might do, like an EV, doesn't necessarily matter if you want that extra wiggle room, especially if you're going to expand later. So it's all this thinking ahead for that situation dependent, and it worked out really well for you all. I say I
Well, I
was really
think
impressed with your usage, John, just in general, the efficiency on the home
Mhm.
I
for
think
that.
yeah. And I have
I
one other comment. This is you also articulated, John, an excellent point that you spent 3 hours with Alex asking every question under the sun. And that's something that I think is really important for people that are watching this video now and in the future because it's being recorded, that this is a fairly significant expenditure.
Hmm.
And GLREA wants to encourage all the people that are contemplating getting solar to ask their solar installer all the questions they possibly can think of, because we want people to be absolutely comfortable with their decision to install solar. And we pride ourselves in having solar businesses that are members of GLREA are the types of businesses that are patient and do want to explain all aspects of the solar system to their prospective clients. That's just the way, because they know that if they keep Jon Mallek happy, that Jon Mallek is going to recommend Michigan Quality Electric to your friends and colleagues all over
Hmm.
Michigan. And word of mouth is so important in this business. And so again, I just think you have the absolute wonderful best attitude towards wanting to learn about solar, taking the time to ask questions, and Michigan Quality Electric was very, very positive, very supportive of that. So great work.
Oh,
Very
well,
quickly
thank you.
before,
Thank you.
oh, sorry, John. Before
Yep.
Abraham, real quick, I'll say for the Solaris program as well, one thing that's neat that we actually see is about 10 to 15% of folks who participate in the groups end up buying through a different installer. So even though there's a discount in that group, about 10 to 15% of folks just find someone else who works for them better. And that is always good for us because that means that they took the time to not only get comparative estimates, but they found something that works for them, better price, better product, just specific products. And that's really it at the end of the day. I know a lot of the installers we work with also have the philosophy of there is some hesitancy about solar. It seems new to some people, even though Terry's had his for 20 years. So they want to make sure that people have a good first experience with it because it's not that scary, it's not that complicated. But if you have a bad experience, it puts them off of it potentially forever.
I I have one more question or suggestion for John, and that is that since you've done um, the remodeling, or at least the energy improving your house uh, to improve its efficiency, its leak, and its insulation. Uh, it may be interesting to do a cost benefit analysis of the expenditures of that process versus the investment in the equipment, in the solarization. And you may be surprised, actually, depending on the cost benefit and the time of return, because um, anyway, it may actually it may very much support the opposite uh, notion. That is to say, to actually start off with the solarization and then to do improvements on the house, except for the very leaky parts, but that's a different story.
Yeah.
There, act-
Yeah.
there have actually
And I
been
should,
studies done that way, which actually beat the general concept that you first need to do all the things in your house and then solarize.
yeah. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
should say for the weatherization work we had done on our home as well, we also applied for the City of Ann Arbor home energy rebates for that. So we have been successful applicants for Ann Arbor rebates through weatherization, battery, and then as well as the electric panel upgrade. So if anyone's ever on the fence about those rebates, they are real. They do work. They do send you the check in the mail. So it's been great for us.
What did you use to insulate your attic? What was used? What material? What type of material? Are we talking closed cell foam, or are we talking well, what
Whatever
methods?
it was the stuff they blow in, I think. So
Okay.
you're already asking a little bit more than I know, but it was definitely I know they blew it in.
Okay. Thanks.
Yep.
Ron?
Ron?
Yeah, I have a question. So when we when we put in solar panels, there are two things. One, they didn't allow us to get additional panels because of the EV cars. And so they looked at our past usage. And the other thing is when you show a reduction in your usage of the kilowatt hours per day, but you're still paying to push electricity back and forth over the grid. Or maybe you're not because you have a battery. I don't have a battery. So we still get charged quite a bit just for pushing electrons across the grid.
Yeah, and Connor, I don't know if you have a ton to say on this, but like I guess in a nutshell, my understanding is when you buy energy from the grid, you're paying both for the energy, but also the distribution of it. When you sell energy back to the grid, you only are getting money for the energy. There's no distribution cost that you get or anything like that. So it's not exactly one to one. If you buy a kilowatt hour from the grid and sell a kilowatt hour to the grid, your bill wouldn't be zero. It's I in the last few years, DT has definitely increased the distribution cost of energy as opposed to the cost of the energy itself. So the distribution cost is pretty significant. So that is where a battery really does come in handy. It really limits kind of the amount you have to buy from the grid because like I said, it's not one to one when you sell it back, if that makes sense. Connor, did I get that right?
Yeah, I mean I was gonna say that DT's compensation is wacky, but yes, that's it's yeah, it is less, it's not one for one. But the only thing I'll add is that last year state legislation did change how much of your bill your overproduction can cover. So even though it's not one for one, now it used to be that it would just offset the um I'm just blanking on the terms now, but a certain section of your bill, but not most of the delivery and transmission costs, and now it does. So if you have that bank that John was referencing from overproduction and just grows and grows and grows because you have a lot of solar, there are some people who just had that bank grow and they can never use it, but now they have a bigger portion of their bill that it can apply to. So it's not one for one, but a lot of folks can get closer to zero, even though they are producing more than they use to get there. So, wins and losses.
Mhm.
And DTE doesn't make out badly because you basically get 50 cents on the dollar back. But it goes to the transformer that you're attached to, and your electricity actually flows to everybody else who is on that transformer first. And that it does not hit the grid, so to speak. That it
Mhm.
goes to your neighbors, and the neighbors actually are charged full price on their meters by DTE. So
Yep. Yep.
Well, that is taking us to right about time. I had one other thing, and it can't have been that important because I've lost it. So, uh, again, John Sarver, first time hosting here. So I would end here by thanking, yes, the GLREA, all our sponsors, everyone who has attended, and then especially Jon Mallek for presenting and answering all the questions and more. Terry, do you have something very quickly before we sign off? No?
No, just
All
just
right, well,
waving my hands.
aha. Well, thank you, everyone. Hope to see some of you again. And any questions for any of us, I'm sure just reach on out. But thank you all for coming. Have a great night.